Okay, I think now we're ready. Good afternoon. So good to see you all here. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. For those who don't know me, I am Valeria Piccoli. I am the chair of the Arts of the Americas, the Ken and Linda Cutler Curator of Latin American Art at the Minneapolis Institute of Art. Today's talk is inspired by the exhibition An Indigenous Art, Huipiles from the MIA collection, currently on view at Gallery 281. This exhibition brings together a selection of Guatemalan huipiles, garments that deeply meaningful as garments that are deeply meaningful as expressions of identity and community. The works on display come from a significant gift of textiles generously donated over many years by Dr. Richard Simmons and his wife, Roberta Simmons. Their contribution has greatly enriched the museum's collection, strengthening its representation of Latin American art and culture. We're especially fortunate today to be joined by our guest speaker, who will help us look more closely at these extraordinary textiles, their histories, their makers, and the cultural knowledge they carry. Please join me in welcoming Roxane Shaughnessy, the Senior Curator and Manager of Collection at the Textile Museum of Canada. She leads the strategic development and advancement of the museum's permanent collection of over 15,000 textiles and promotes public access and engagement both digitally and through a community-focused approach to object display in the gallery. She has over 20 years of experience curating exhibitions from the collection, most recently printed textiles from Kingite Studios in 2019, which won the 2021 Governor General's History Award for Excellence in Museums, and Ancestry and Artistry, Maya Textiles from Guatemala in 2013. Shaughnessy holds an AMA in anthropology and previously held positions at the Royal Ontario Museum and as president of the Textile Society of America. Thank you and welcome, Roxane.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be here and to have this opportunity to speak to you about Maya huipiles from Guatemala. And I'd like to thank Valeria for inviting me to come here and do this talk. I'm going to begin with a quote by Cholbash Samaj: "To wear Maya dress is to accept the invitation written by our ancestors. Our children do not abandon us. That to wear Maya dress is to tell ourselves and others, I am Maya, we are Maya, we continue and will continue to be Maya, and that to teach the boys and girls to weave is to make them literate in the art of expressing themselves with colors, threads, and Maya forms and designs." This presentation draws from the exhibition Ancestry and Artistry, Maya Textiles from Guatemala, which I curated in 2013. It was on view at the museum and toured in Canada. A number of the huipiles that you will see were donated by Dr. Donna Stewart, who collected them for over 60 years of travel to Guatemala, and to whom the museum is grateful. Guatemala has long been celebrated for the richness of its indigenous Maya culture. It has also suffered periods of violent cultural repression, most recently during the 1980s. Traje, the elaborate traditional dress of the Maya, is a primary visual expression of Maya identity in Guatemala today. Although various pressures have led some individuals to abandon their traditional clothing, it is still worn by several million people of Maya descent, 40% of the population of Guatemala. Here we see a group of men and women wearing traje in Todos Santos, Cuchumatan, in the northwest highlands of Guatemala. The Maya maintain a distinctive culture and way of life in the Guatemalan highlands, speak over 20 languages, and continue to innovate and express themselves through vibrant handmade clothing. If you look at the top left-hand corner of the map, you will see the department of Huehuetenango, where Todos Santos is located. The Textile Museum of Canada holds a collection of vibrantly colored weavings with evocative symbolic designs from a number of communities in Guatemala. In 2013, the museum mounted an exhibition called Ancestry and Artistry, Maya Textiles from Guatemala. It was an opportunity to celebrate the rich and vital artistry of Maya textile traditions. The local expressions of generations of Maya weavers provide a window into Maya culture and a symbol of their resilience and survival as a distinct people. And this is an installation shot from the Textile Museum installation. On the wall here is a poem by Humberto Acbal, a Quiche Maya poet from Guatemala, called De Pura Pueblo in Spanish and Village Life in English. So I'll read it in both. Que chula parece huipil, la iglesia de San Andrés Excool, vestida de fiesta, que bien le quedan, las ventas de aguacates en frente. And in English, how pretty it looks like a huipil. The church of San Andrés Uxcool in fiesta attire, how well suited, the sale of avocados opposite. Cloth holds great importance for the Maya, and traje plays a crucial role in the traditional patterns of community life. Whether worn for religious ceremonies, as an emblem of ethnic pride, or sold in tourist markets, traje maintains a vital link with the ancestral past. It is also a symbol of change and a medium for innovation and creative expression. Maya traditional dress can be regarded as text or message. It conveys information and provides a visual means of communicating ideas, values, and aspects of Maya culture. Traditionally, each highland community has a distinctive form of local dress, which is distinguished from that of its neighbors by color, style, design motifs, and manner of wearing. Women's traje consists of a brightly colored hand-woven huipil or blouse and a wraparound corte or skirt, secured at the waist by a faja or sash. It often includes a distinctive cinta or headdress, shawl, apron, sobre huipil, which is the over huipil, and suit or headcloth. Men's traje consists of pantalon, which are trousers, faja, a belt or sash, shirt, and hat. It may also include a rodillera, which is a hip wrap, overpants, jacket, overtunic, and suit. Here we see the style of huipils in San Mateo, Ixtatan. Elements of traje indicate the wearer's identity and status within the community and reveal the maker's skill as a weaver or embroiderer. They are all intimately associated with the cycle of human experience, everyday activities, and ceremonies that require special clothing. In this case, the designs are embroidered. And here is the men's traje in Todos Santos. Textile techniques, the construction and shape of individual garments, the color and imagery of designs, together with the placement of motifs, all serve to link the wearer with his or her community. In recent years, political upheaval, economic pressures, and globalization have led to dramatic social changes. These, in turn, have brought about the loss or transformation of Maya textile making traditions. Nevertheless, the Maya have largely retained their identity. They remain strongly attached to their collective traditions or costumbre, although changes have happened, which we will discuss later in this presentation. The roots of contemporary Highland dress, including the basic technology of the backstrap loom and the shape of the woman's huipil, go back at least 1,500 years. Traje is rooted in the ancient culture of the Maya, which reached its height during the Classic period, and that was a period between 300 and 900 AD. Women have woven cloth on a backstrap loom using cotton and plant fibers since long before the Spanish conquest in the 16th century. Guatemala has white cotton, but it also has a native brown strain called Ixcaco. Originally, hand-spun cotton was dyed with a range of natural dyes, then woven into cloth with 4 finished selvages. The textile traditions of the Maya, like their languages and worldview, demonstrate the enduring nature of Maya culture. Images of elaborately woven huipils and skirts, together with other art garments from the classic period, are visible on carved stelae or stone monuments at archaeological sites. They also appear on ceramics, murals, and in illustrated books or codices. The distinctive headdress, cinta, worn by Maya women today, has many similarities with those seen on pre-Spanish figurines. On your left, we see a woman depicted on Yaxchilan lintel 32, clad in a wide huipil with what appears to be an all-over brocaded design. Yaxchilan is an ancient Maya city located on the bank of the Usumacinta River in the state of Chiapas, Mexico, in the late Classic period. A lintel is a beam that spans an opening, a doorway or window, serving as a structural support for the wall above, while also acting as a key decorative element. On the right, a high-ranking woman is seen on Bonampak Stela 2, circa AD 790, with decorative seam much like the decorative join or randa seen on many present-day highland Guatemala clothing. Bonampak is an ancient Maya archaeological site in the Mexican state of Chiapas. A stela is a vertical stone or wooden slab, often carved or inscribed, used in the ancient world for commemorative, funerary, or boundary-making purposes. The ancient civilization spanned a large region in Mesoamerica, covering parts of 5 modern-day countries: southeastern Mexico, including the Yucatan Peninsula, and Chiapas, all of Guatemala and Belize, and the western portions of Honduras and El Salvador. Here are some ancient ruins from the period of Maya civilization. On the right, you see pyramids at the site of Tikal in the rainforests of northern Guatemala. It flourished between 200 and 850 AD and was later abandoned. On the left is a sculpture from Copan, a Maya site in the Copan department of western Honduras, not far from the border of Guatemala, which dates from 400 to 800 AD, the classic period of Maya civilization. Today, the huipil is the most recognized item of Maya apparel. It is made from 2 or 3 rectangular cloth panels. Woven with a warp-faced technique on a backstrap loom, with side seams sewn or left open, it is patterned with supplementary weft decoration and embroidery. Designs convey symbolic information. When making a huipil, each weaver employs her artistic powers and her greatest skill. The introduction by Spanish settlers of sheep's wool, silk, and the treadle loom led to innovations in textile making and added new elements to indigenous weaving practices. Silk was used profusely in the 1930s, in particular in Chichicastenango. In recent decades, the range of materials has widened to include commercial yarns such as acrylic and mercerized cotton. Industrially produced chemical dyes give modern textiles their vivid coloring. Although machine-made blouses sometimes replace the huipil, Maya women continue to attach great importance to their traje as a means of creative expression and to pass on traditions and values from the past to the present, from one generation of women to the next. The textiles you will see in this presentation are a recreation in thread of the Maya world. Their exquisite designs reveal the deep respect that the Maya have for their natural environment. We recognize how deeply connected Maya culture is to the earth and spirit world, and are reminded of what is being lost in this rapid globalization of our world. Although we do not know the identity of the makers, the Guatemalan textiles take us on a journey through a century of Maya textile production. They celebrate the Maya as a vibrant, living culture that has succeeded in preserving a central core of ideas, practices, and worldview. Traje is unique in its ability to be simultaneously traditional and new, weaving the past and the present together in timeless patterns. And now I'm going to talk about weaving and cosmology. Indigenous artists no longer paint codices and murals, but their weavings gathered up the countryside. They draped themselves with it, clothing themselves in sunsets, birds, flowers, hillsides, and butterflies. Luis Cardosa y Aragon was a Guatemalan writer, essayist, poet, art critic, and diplomat. For centuries, Maya cosmology has focused on the cycle of time and on recreating the new from what has already passed. The moon goddess Ixchel is associated with weaving. Textiles offer a window into the rich tapestry of Maya cosmological beliefs, providing a link between the spirit world and the human world. The textile traditions of the Maya, like their languages and worldview, demonstrate the enduring nature of Maya culture. I'm going to talk about the Cofradía, or the civil religious hierarchy, an important cornerstone of Maya cosmology. Spain implanted the Cofradía system in the New World in the mid-16th century in an effort to convert the indigenous population to Catholicism and to enable revenued collection. The Cofradía is a religious sodality. Members are entrusted with the care of the images of village saints. They are also responsible for organizing the celebration of their feast days. Through participation and communal service, members can gain prestige and honor. Over time, as the statues of the saints became identified with ancestral gods from the local pantheon, Cofradías became subverted to the practice of pre-Christian ritual and religion, while apparently upholding Catholic devotions. Maya textiles are rich in visual imagery, and the continuity of religious ideas, although threatened by the influence of Catholicism and Protestantism, is expressed through woven patterns that convey symbolic information, and through clothing styles designed for ceremonial purposes. Worn during vital Cofradía activities, women's finely woven huipiles and men's suits or headcloths provide a glimpse into the sacred space of Maya ritual and ceremony. In this slide, you see the Cofradía huipil from Nahuala with the double-headed eagle. And here is the ceremonial attire worn by men for Cofradía ceremonies from Chichicastenango, which continue to be worn today. And here are two elaborate suits or men's headcloths from Chichicastenango that were worn for Cofradía activities. The left is made with silk and features the double-headed eagle, which we'll talk about more later on. And before 1910, examples such as this one on the right were woven from hand-spun cotton. The Cofradía system, which gives full expression to Maya values, allows individuals to integrate their own lives with the life of the community. Some Cofradías have been weakened by the violence of recent decades and by the incursions of Protestant missionaries into Maya communities. Yet the system continues even today to provide a concrete link to the past. Because the Maya are able to reshape the institution to meet their own needs, it serves as the main political force in the struggle for Maya survival. In communities with an active Cofradía, it preserves ritual knowledge. It also promotes the survival. Sorry, I've got the wrong slide here. The survival of the distinctive garments worn by Cofradía members. Okay, on to the next. We're going to talk about symbols here. I'm going to talk about visual imagery and symbols in the weavings. Highland weavers use a wide range of design motifs, often drawn from the natural world. These include bird, animal, and plant forms. Other designs incorporate geometric patterns such as zigzags, diamonds, and chevrons. Many symbols communicate a cultural message that draws on the rich universe of Maya cosmology, passed down through oral tradition and ritual practices. After the arrival of Spanish settlers, the Maya adopted additional motifs such as the horse, peacock, chicken, and cow. In San Martin, Jilotepeque, the ceremonial sobre huipil or over huipil features a woven horizontal zigzag. This motif, referred to as the feathered serpent, is one of the most widespread symbols found in Maya textiles. The feathered serpent was of great importance to the ancient Maya because it symbolized the god Kukulkan. Before the conquest, it was often carved in stone or painted on ceramics. For the Maya, Kukulkan, the Mayan feathered serpent, was a god of wind, rain, and storms, closely associated with the creation of the world and the cyclical nature of time. He was revered as a mediator between the heavens and the earth, representing the duality of life. The serpent, which crawls on the ground, symbolized the earth, while the feathers symbolized the sky, embodying Kukulkan's ability to transcend both worlds. This duality reflects the Mayan understanding of balance and harmony in the universe. One of the most ancient Maya symbols is the tree of life, or ceiba tree. It is called Cotzayan in San Pedro Zacatepeques, where it appears on the sobre huipil worn for wedding ceremonies and Cofradía rituals. In the words of one weaver, reported by anthropologist Barbara Knoke de Arthun, quote, "The tree is like a woman's life. She bears flowers and fruit, and the branches are her children. Life is never ending, and that is why it is called the tree of life. We are many, we are like a tree. The grandparents said it was so." This image also refers to the tree that stands at the center of the earth and was believed by the ancient Maya to connect the terrestrial world to the spirit world above. Here you see the tree of life on this over huipil in the close-up image from San Pedro Zacatepeques. Another symbol is the image of the double-headed eagle, which I mentioned earlier, which appears on many woven textiles, in particular the huipils, sobre huipils, and headcloths of Chichicastenango and Nahuala. The harpy eagle, which is indigenous to Central and South America, held special significance for the Quiche-speaking Maya, who were known as sons of the eagle, sons of the dawn. When Spanish forces conquered the Quiche in the 16th century, they rewarded them for their bravery by allowing them to adopt the image of the double-headed eagle. This insignia from the Spanish crown was a symbol of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The Maya, during this time of transition, were obliged to abandon textile designs seen as pagan by Spanish colonizers and forced to adopt others from Spain. The double-headed eagle, which could be viewed in two ways, thus served two purposes. It was a Spanish Habsburg symbol, but it also represented Kot, the double-headed deity with a dual nature. According to Barbara Knoke de Arthun, one head looks forward while the other looks back. One sees good while the other sees evil. As one looks at the earth, the other looks heavenward. Okay, so we're going to talk now about traditions and innovation. What endures, however, is not necessarily static. Change itself can be predictable, enduring quality of life. Okay. Over the centuries, the Maya have largely retained their Maya identity, while at the same time responding to developments in the wider world. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this now. Since the start of the 20th century, Maya clothing has been gradually evolving traditional styles of dress for everyday and ceremonial use, now coexist with modern versions that feature commercial cloth and machine embroidery. As in the past, the huipil is worn with pride. It links the wearer with her community. At the same time, however, modernization has brought changes to the Maya way of life and has affected the different meanings and values that attach to traje. Cultural, religious, economic, technological, and political factors have all had an impact on backstrap weaving, the role of traje, and Maya identity. After 1890, many men were forced by economic pressures to leave their villages and to work for months at a time on coastal Ladino plantations. Hoping to be less conspicuous and to avoid discrimination, they adopted Western-style clothing. The cost of purchasing materials and the time involved in weaving traje has had a profound effect on the wearing of traditional dress. Used garments, cheap and easily accessible, are now imported in large quantities from North America. The impact of the Civil War, which lasted 36 years, which caused many Maya to leave the countryside and be forcibly relocated. This displacement during the Civil War led to an increase in poverty, and this factor, together with the death of family wage earners and the loss of subsistence-level agricultural lands, destabilized communities, eroded traditions of family life, and contributed to social change. The rise of Protestantism, as I've mentioned, has also affected many Highland communities. It has impacted on traditional religious practices, weakening the power of the Cofradía system and the wearing of traje. Where Protestantism has taken hold, it has bitterly divided many communities. Of course, weaving traditions are dynamic, and change is an ongoing process. As traje evolves, it assimilates technological and material innovations and reflects historical influences and social upheavals. After 1930, rising numbers of tourists, an ambitious road-building program, and greater varieties of imported yarns all helped to accelerate this rate of innovation. During the last century, when cross-stitch pattern diagrams became available in markets, Europeanized designs entered the Guatemalan visual repertoire. Santiago Atitlan, the home of the Tzotzil-speaking Maya, is situated on the shores of Lake Atitlan. Now a popular tourist destination, it experienced extensive violence during the Civil War. Although the community is split between Protestants and traditionally minded Catholics, textile traditions remain strong and dynamic. Many men and women still wear traje. The men's trousers are particularly distinctive. During the 20th century, traje designs have undergone a series of striking changes. In the 1890s, the huipil was white with narrow red stripes, no woven decoration and embroidery on the neckline. During the early part of the 20th century, embroidered motifs were added, and over time, the embroidery became more extensive. The 1960s saw the rise of naturalistic and ever more luxuriant patterning. On the left, the thick weft stripes create a grid for small embroidered images of animals. On the right, between 1950 and 1965, weavers developed a new style and a different technique of supplementary weft patterning. Instead of hand-picking to create the pattern, a time-consuming method, they used an extra shed and heddle rod to speed up the weaving process. The resulting designs are small geometric forms, repeated right across the huipil. This technical innovation probably reflected the desire of weavers to produce huipils at speed for the tourists who were arriving in increasing numbers. By the 1990s, the embroidery had become even bolder and more expressive. Designs showed birds of differing sizes, flowers, branches, and other motifs. New materials included metallic thread, beads, and imitation pearls. Inspiration was drawn from a variety of sources, including, as Donna Stewart reports, the Audubon Book of Birds. And she says, quote, "During one of my visits, I was entreated by a leading embroiderer to bring her the White Bird Book. Puzzled at first, I realized that she was asking for a recent reprint of Audubon's Folio of Birds. The following year, I lugged this large and heavy book all the way from Canada, to her home, crossing the lake by boat. She immediately summoned her friends, who studied the plates with great excitement. When I returned the following year, I purchased a striking huipil embroidered with an exact copy of an Audubon print, which you see on the right. Although these various styles coexist, the most elaborately embroidered garments are destined for ceremonial use. Men's trousers from this community have followed a similar stylistic development. And here's a slide showing the different styles of the huipils from this community. Santiago Atitlan. Santo Tomas Chichicastenango is located in the department of El Quiché, and its inhabitants are descended from the Quiché who ruled Utatlan. The magnificent pre-Spanish ceremonial center of the highlands, Utatlan is that. The Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the Quiché, was discovered in the archives of the colonial church. This proud heritage is reflected in the clothing worn by the Maya of Chichicastenango. Their vigorous indigenous culture embraces the new while simultaneously retaining older traditions. Many people wear traje and participate in ceremonial activities. Cofradía members still wear appropriate clothing and participate in religious processions. The Chichicastenango huipil is highly symbolic. Laid out flat, the brocaded areas form a cross which represents the world. Rays like those of the sun emanate from the neckline, and you can see that on the left there and the right. The wearer's head, like the sun, emerges from the opening. Black rosettes represent the 4 cardinal points you can see on the shoulders of the one on the left. Stripes symbolize cornfields, while mountains and eagle wings are evoked by zigzag designs. Huipils made before 1960 were often embellished with a double-headed eagle, and that you can see on the left, although it's a little abstract, which is featured in the huipil on the left. This motif, representational at the outset, became increasingly abstract as geometric designs became dominant. The 1960s saw the introduction of a new type of patterning. Naturalistic flower designs, drawn on graph paper and inspired originally by European cross-stitch embroidery books, were adapted by weavers who developed a loom technique for this task. The double-headed bird persisted longer in Cofradía huipils, while floral patterns coexisted with older, more traditional forms. In some newer examples, the double-headed eagle motif has reappeared. And here we have examples of both styles of the huipil, the double-headed eagle on the mannequin and the floral design one on the wall from the exhibition installation. The men of Chichicastenango wear unusually elaborate headcloths or tsuits. Before 1910, examples with a white ground were woven from hand-spun cotton, which I mentioned earlier. An example is the one on the left. Others had a red cotton ground with thin black stripes and featured brocaded designs done in cotton or silk. And these other two, the center and the one on the right, have silk embroidery. Cofradía members wore a ceremonial headcloth woven with lavish amounts of silk. It displayed a double-headed eagle, as shown in the center example. During the 1950s, white headcloths started to disappear. Subsequent design developments, which paralleled those of the huipil, incorporated European floral motifs. And if you look at the suit on the head of the mannequin, that is one with the floral decoration, floral design. During the 1920s, weavers used the silk thread available to them to pattern headcloths with a range of intricate designs. Tourism was starting to make inroads, and visitors often bought textiles, many of which are now in international museum collections. They represent the beginning of the appreciation of the artistry of Guatemalan weaving by the outside world. Sorry. I'm lost here. What slide is this? 32. Navala, near Lake Atitlan, is inhabited by Quiche speakers. The white ground of the local huipil is chiefly decorated in red, displays figures, animals, and birds, often with bands of zigzags and diamonds. The designs on the front and back are different. After 1940, a new type of non-color fest yarn became available. When the dye ran, the women liked the result. I have to find my next one. Sorry. Next up here. Okay, here we go. They even began to soak their huipils in soapy water to intensify the effect. The Cofradía huipil on the left features a double-headed eagle, a design which also appears on the border of men's sashes. A wide range of weaving styles persists in Nahuala. The floor mat design incorporates bands of vertical diamond motifs, and these often represent the 4 cardinal points of the Maya world. More recently, large animal motifs, mythical lions, jaguars, quetzal birds, and Maya men have appeared, and you see large animals on the huipil on the right. Weavers are also using new color combinations. After 1980, designs were brocaded in white, cream, and pink. Today, as women explore new variations in village design, huipils display an indigo ground embellished with rows of small brocaded animals, such as deer, a popular Maya symbol, which are featured on the huipil on the left. And here we have a mannequin with full woman's traje from Nahuala. I just have to find. How did these get mixed up all of a sudden? Okay. San Juan Comalapa. Some of the older huipils in Comalapa have ground fabrics of hand-spun ishkako. This natural brown cotton, which is different species from white cotton, has short fibers that cannot be machine spun. Highly valued for its color, ishkako was still grown and spun in a few villages in the 1960s. The everyday huipil on the left and the ceremonial over huipil on the right are similar. These illustrate the stylistic changes that have impacted Guatemalan clothing in recent decades. The oldest one on the right was probably woven in the 1930s or 40s and has a single multicolored band of birds. Many are worked with silk floss. This silk thread was readily available at this time. On the left, this huipil, perhaps from the 1960s, features curvilinear, Europeanized designs, worked with mercerized cotton. This type of cotton is treated and results in a glossier thread. Which is more receptive to dyes. Okay. And here you see the one on the right, the older one, with another huipil from Comalapa on the wall behind it. And that one on the wall dates from 1970 to 79, and it has floral designs. In Todos Santos, more recently in the late 20th century, the huipil has changed significantly, and to a blue-purple color with similar rows of designs. And now we're going to move on to the local and the global. I just have to sort out my pages here. Right. Okay. We, the Indigenous, are willing to combine tradition with modernism, but not at any cost. We will not permit our future to be reduced to ethnotourism. Rigoberta Menchú. Rigoberta Menchú Tum is a Quiche Guatemalan human rights activist, feminist, and Nobel Peace Prize laureate. Menchú has dedicated her life to publicizing the rights of Guatemalans' indigenous peoples during and after the Guatemalan Civil War, and to producing indigenous rights internationally. Now we will explore weaving and Maya identity in the 21st century and the translation of woven design elements into a new form, hooked rugs, produced to generate income for Maya women. As we have seen, Traje is changing at a local level, but Guatemala has experienced the rise of a generalized pan-Maya clothing style. This image shows modern styles of Maya clothing made on a treadle loom and sewing machine. This is especially true in communities where backstrap weaving traditions are in decline. The Civil War and the 1976 earthquake, which brought about the death or displacement of community members, left many families worse off. Garments woven on treadle looms are widely available and substantially cheaper than those made by more labor-intensive methods. Here you see some examples of pan-Maya traje for sale and being worn by the woman. Okay. Which is a seam, right. Sorry, into this. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Just the 39. Right, okay. During the armed conflict of the 1980s, generalized Maya dress, which incorporates elements of Traje from different regions, provided protection. Individuals could not be identified as being from a specific community. Today, Traje is increasingly seen as an expression of Maya unity or identity, especially among younger, better educated women. Predominantly urban, they proclaim their generalized Maya identity through cross-community borrowing. They show their worldliness by incorporating other stylistic elements into their own huipils, and they wear it as an expression of pride in their greater ethnicity. Here on the left, Nancy Patricia Tunche from San Pedro, Zacatepeques, wearing pan-Maya traje. Her huipil is from Tactique with a style of randa. Style of randa, which is a seam embellishment used in Quetzaltenango, which you can see here on both sides of the floral decoration. As a working woman, she chooses to wear huipils she likes from different areas of Guatemala. On the right, students from the school El Triunfo in Solala in 2012 wearing pan-Maya traje. Pan-Maya traje identifies the wearers as Maya, but no longer communicates the same traditional codes. New values are attached. When a woman chooses to wear a commercially made huipil, she shows that she still has a connection to her indigenous community, but indicates that she is part of the modern world. And here's another example. Okay, and this is one of the women involved in the hooked rug production, which I'll talk about next. Okay. I will close with a story about how making hooked rugs became a commercial success for a group of Guatemalan women. For many Maya women, weaving remains their only source of income. The iconographic language of the hand-woven huipil, for so long a vital form of cultural expression, has made its way in recent decades into the global marketplace. Today, backstrap weavers are increasingly using their skills to create goods for visiting tourists and for export. Weaving for commercial purposes is not a new phenomenon, but the extension of Maya artisan production into the global sphere shows the ability of the Maya to adapt to new situations and even create new forms and meanings. Many backstrap weavers have formed cooperatives. Oxlaju's Bats, or 13 Threads, a cooperative based in Panajachel, in 2011 launched a new venture, the hugely successful Hooked Rug Project. Traditionally woven bags and sashes are repetitive to make, Huipiles demand a large investment of labor and costly materials. Marianne Wise, who's here today, an artist and rug hooker from North America, offered members of the cooperative a new technology to add to their repertoire for income generation. The women responded by incorporating designs drawn from their own rich repository of huipil motifs. It has been very successful. The women enjoy the flexibility of rug hooking, as you can carry the rug with you as you work, and it frees them up from having to remain in one place when weaving on a backstrap loom attached to a pole or tree. These 3 hooked rugs were featured in the exhibition Ancestry and Artistry. While they are produced in a different medium, they continue to be inspired by the designs they use for their huipils. On the left, a hooked rug by Carmen Maldonado. The design is inspired by Traje from Santiago Atitlan, and you can see the bird figure. On the center, a hooked rug by Zoila Calgua. The design is inspired by Traje from Chichicastenango near her home. And note the sunburst collar design in the center of the rug. It's hard to see. And on your right, the hooked rug by Jessica Calgua. The design depicts Traje traditional dress from Chichicastenango, where she lives. Okay. So, just if you're interested, they're still sold through the Cultural Cloth website at that address. Hooked rugs continue to be made by Guatemalan women for sale and have markets outside of the country. If you are interested, multicolores hooked rugs are sold through Cultural Cloth website. There were a series of very successful rug tours that were launched by 13 Threads, I believe, for North American rug hookers or those interested to visit Guatemala and meet the women who are making hooked rugs in their communities. And here we see women from the 13 Threads rug hooking project. And here is Carmen Maldonado with her hooked rug, looking very pleased. It's a beautiful rug, inspired by the design from Santiago Atitlan. So to conclude, economic benefits are not the only reason women continue to weave and make other products for sale. Engaged in a creative process, they are deeply proud of their artistry. The Maya have endured periods of pervasive violence, economic pressures, the spread of Protestantism, and global influences. And textile making has enabled them to retain their values while reaffirming their identity. It has provided them with a means for cultural reinvention and survival. By reproducing the way of their ancestors, the Maya remain connected to their traditions. We must support their efforts to define themselves, determine their own future, and maintain the richness of their culture. Thank you.
Hello, so we still have some time for questions, and Karen can help us move the microphone.
Thank you. I have a few questions. That was really informative. Thank you. There was a lake, the shores of something.
Right, that's Lake Atitlan.
Atitlan. And I wondered about colors. There were some huipils that had designs on the top and the bottoms. You had spoken about the color white, and white wasn't used so much after the 1960s or so. And there was one, I think, with yellow and one with blue or green. Who is doing the dyeing, and what are the colors being dyed with? Vegetables or aniline dyes? And who does the dyeing?
Okay, so for the first question, what I was referring to about being white not after a certain time was the zoot, the man's headcloth. So that stopped.
Not the bottom of the...
Not the huipils. There's communities like Nahuala, I didn't show any, but they produce huipils in white colors, light colors, yellow, and so on. Yeah, and you were asking about dyes?
Yes.
Yeah. So currently the dyes, it's sort of gone in different directions, but initially, obviously, were natural at some point before synthetic dyes became available. But most of the huipils in this show and from, sort of most of the 20th century would have been not natural dyes. Now, I'm not up to date on what's going on now. There may well be weavers and organizations that are producing natural dyed textiles.
And who does the dyeing, men or the women?
The women.
And the back straps, the back weaves
Women.
are still being used.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was so informative. Thank you. I was really interested in the forested ancient ruins that have been found. Is it how do you say it? Bonampal? And what I'm wondering is what they have learned about sort of the history of these textiles as these ancient ruins have been uncovered from the forests.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So there were two separate slides that involved ancient stelae, and then there were the two sites. So I don't think, there's no textiles don't preserve in a forest. They won't survive. So the main source of information would be images, like what some researchers have done, looking at old stelae. And the sites I just added, Tikal and Copan, because they were major sites at the time, and this was a culture, Maya Classic period, which was the height of Maya civilization, and to sort of make the connection with Guatemala as we know today, and this rich heritage that this came from, and tried to sort of give a picture of some of the challenges of the last century, and sort of put against the beauty and skills and incredible work that's being produced, and layering that, or sort of grounding that in the values, cosmology and Cofradía and all of these other elements which still exist. We're working with a member of a Cofradía in Chichicastenango at the moment, so there's change, but as I mentioned, it's unbelievable how this culture, the people and the culture and the languages have still persevered and just innovated and changed, but they're still, very much, Maya. I don't know if that answers your question. But.
Could you explain a little bit more about what you mean by Cofradía?
Yeah, it's a complicated institution. Initially, it was a Spanish hierarchy structure that they imposed as a means for them to control the communities, get revenue from them, and to sort of impose Catholicism. But like a lot of things, and I witnessed this when I was there, you'd go into a Catholic church, but there were Maya people that were not worshiping, Jesus and all the rest of it. They were performing ceremony. And, the Cofradía, as I mentioned, I didn't go into a lot of detail, but it has, it got taken over by the actual members of the community. And even though it's called a civil religious hierarchy and members have duties and they have roles and they rotate and so on, there's still a very spiritual aspect to it. And that is exemplified through the clothing when you see, the men have these, in Chichicastenango specifically, which is probably one of the most active in that area of Cofradía, that have, that they still wear. And there's the huipiles that are specifically made for Cofradía that I showed a couple of examples of. So it's, it still continues as far as, I don't know a lot about right now, but as I said, there is Guatemalan Maya man that we've worked with at the Textile Museum, and he wears those clothes when he's performing ceremony. I don't know if that really answers your question, but it's like a lot of things that, things just sort of get taken over and reshaped, and they gave them this structure and they just made it their own. They've kind of, yeah.
Hi, thank you for coming out here. I was curious if you could give a brief overview as to how location influenced different weaving patterns.
I can only tell you what I think. I think, the pattern location, I don't know. I gave a little bit of a sort of snapshot of how some of the symbols, what they reflect. And I can't really think of any of them that were sort of related or connected to the environment.
What about the topography?
Sorry,
The topography.
Yeah, there's the tree, right, in San Pedro. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. But I think it was really driven by cosmology. That was no matter where they were. And of course, it's very different now from during the Maya period, Maya civilization period. But yeah, the ceiba tree is one example of a symbol that, and that grows in the lowlands as well. So that may well have come down through the classic period.
Hi, I have a question. You had mentioned that there was a sort of pan-Maya movement among the weavers and the wearers of the huipils. Is like how far does that go? I guess I understand that the process of weaving is like done all over the world, but all huipils and like, is it like only for, say, is it a closed practice for the Maya groups only, or is it also like seen among the mestizo and Latino peoples as well there in Guatemala?
Yeah, as a pan-Maya thing, it's just the Maya. Mm-hmm. And, the information that I have is not totally current, but it definitely, you see, and even in the picture of the 13 threads, you see women that are not wearing the total traje that all matches from the community.
Yeah.
So I don't know a lot about what's going on right now, but I think that a lot of the things that I talked about in terms of, the impact on the cultures through the war, the earthquake, and all of these other things, and it's a very long time consuming practice to weave a huipil. Like you
Yes.
can't do it overnight. Like
Yes.
it's huge.
Correct.
And, women clothing their families, dealing with gathering food and all the rest of it, it's huge. And, the costs of materials and all of that. So I think that, all of these things sort of came together, and it just made it very challenging for women to continue that. And, but I think that it's interesting from what one of the women in one of the last slides was saying about having a piece from one community and a piece from another and a piece from another. They're still Maya, they're still
Yes.
Maya that they want to, represent and wear the clothing. They're just, exploring a little bit some other options. I mean, that's my sort of take on it. I don't know. But, and also, I mean, some of the treadle loom weaving, of course, the pan Maya is much faster and easier to make than, dealing with the way that just a backstrap loom is, more labor intensive. Does anybody else have any thoughts they wanted to share about their own experience with Guatemalan textiles? Or rugs?
It seems like to me with what you're seeing now is like it's fashion. You didn't used to see color coordinated from the huipil to the skirt to the belt, and it's like all over the board. Anything goes now in the weaving of the huipils in a lot of the places, but also what the women wear. Very stylish.
It's interesting, yeah.
And then I'd just say the only other thing I could think of when you were talking about geography is the gauze weave for where it's hot. Is a totally different weave.
Also, just sharing my experience too, and having been from Guatemala and going to Guatemala quite a bit, I think now too there's a movement in which most of Latinos are now proud finally of their culture, and so now we weave, I would say, the huipils into our clothing, into purses that are highly valued. Case in point, just because there is, now I think, like you were mentioning, there is the racism within Latinos and Mayas, and I think now it's changing. Now you see, like you were saying, Jody, it's more of a fashion. You see fashion shows with Mayan pieces added to regular clothing. And so there's the interest to learn more about it and also not let it get lost.
Thank you. That's
Well,
really
now
good
we
to
see
know.
the president of Mexico wearing huipil, so yeah. I think that there's another level of cultural pride that is coming to surface. But I have a question which may sound very dumb, but I wanted to understand what kind of connection when composing a traje, when mixing the huipil with the sash with the skirt. I mean, what is the connection between them? I mean, is there any element that, because when we're talking about like we dress in the Western world, we try to coordinate colors or shapes or whatever. Is there any logic in combining the traje? That's what.
Well, the images I showed you of the mannequins when they were dressed in the full traje. So, and these are older, right? So those communities, it's probably changed, as you were. Oh, sorry. It's probably changed. But, Nahuala would have a certain different type styles of huipils. That would be the top. And the skirt or corte would be certain color and pattern, and the belt, and if there's a cinta. So in that period when, you know, a lot of these images came from, that was full traje, and, you know, there wasn't sort of mixing it up, really, that I understand. But now, you know, it's completely different. So there's the pan Maya traje, and, you know, what you were talking about. So the original traje, how, like when you saw the first few pictures, like the men in Todos Santos, that's what they wore. You know, that was being in the community, that's what you wore. And the same with the San Mateo Ixtatan, those beautiful embroidered huipiles were, that's it. And the skirts were all the same. And so the change has happened, and a lot of it, I mean, San Mateo is quite isolated in Northwest Highlands. I mean, there's also not a lot of connection for some communities. I mean, it's a big country. Some are closer to Atitlan, would have more exposure from the outside world, but Northwest Highlands are pretty, you know, communities are far apart, and there's not many people that go there that aren't from Guatemala in, you know, back then. Yeah, so I, like the original sort of, I think the women in the community just kind of lead that. And Nahuala has a lot of different designs in their huipiles, like completely different, some of them, in colors and all of that. But there's still, you can, and now they're doing very different looking huipiles. So I don't know, it's innovation, it's, you know, what somebody felt like weaving one day, and I don't know, I don't think there's a, but I think when the communities were, you know, more corporate and not much coming from the outside, then everybody wore what they wore, and that was accepted. And yeah, does anybody else have any thoughts about that? Or
well, if you don't, and if we do, we have any questions? Yeah.
I mean, we've kind of been moving in and around this concept of fashion, right? Mm-hmm. Which the way we're using it is a very westernized, right, colonial sense of fashion. And the question has kind of been bubbling through over and over. To what extent did, let's take women, for instance, think about how the artistry of one piece, the huipil versus the belt versus, you know, et cetera, mm-hmm. How did the creative design on one speak to another in choosing what pieces to put together, right? And so I think it's like you can't maybe, I'm positing, use the word fashion in the same sense, but given how much creative imagination and thought and energy goes into producing a garment that, as you say, takes a long time, and individuals' preferences for certain color combinations or whatever within the context of your community's palette, right? How could there not be a sense of, to use that term again, a sense of fashion, or I look good, or how do I look similar but different to you, right? It mm-hmm. seems like a given. Of course, they're thinking about how do they look, how does it come put together, even if the rules of what goes together, you don't have to have, you know, black socks with black pants kind of thing. Even if the rules are different, I think that it would be bizarre to think that there isn't that inner impulse coming from any individual woman, right? Mm-hmm. Within the context of her community, for what it's worth.
Perfect, thank you. If we don't have any other questions, I think it's just time to, oh, you do?
Yeah, sure. I wanted to respond from a different part of the world, because I'm not very familiar with Guatemalan culture, but I think you are, with some Peruvian textiles, which also carry a deep sense of meaning for each community that, mm-hmm. and I know you've studied them extensively. And coming from that tradition, I think that definitely everybody wants to be seen as a beautiful and colorful and creative person. But I think in Andean societies, at least, each design very carefully represents each community, and it is it comes from roots that are different from colonial and Occidental views, and that are understood completely differently. For example, in Tequila Island, the men, there was a question about who weaves, who uses the seeds, who works with that. The men are the ones who weave the sashes. And each sash represents the story of that family, the story of that person. You also talked about the tintals, the tinteles, which other communities in Ayacucho also tailor for their own homes. Because I think, coming from that area of the world, our connection to the soil, our connection to our communities, and our connection to our clothing is way deeper. We do not go to Walmart to buy a t-shirt. We prepare it from cotton that we've woven over generations. The potato in a community in the Andes is a part of the family because it is distinct and precious to that community. It is grown by them. And so I think I adore fashion, but I think that it is so beautiful to have a fashion that reflects your community and your story.
I think that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know, that it comes within the context of language, if you will, of a community, but you're still thinking like, you know, I did a good job on this one, right? You know, absolutely, but within that context. And maybe that's something fashion today is a little bit missing, is what is the language, what is the meaning underneath something, you know, other than that it's a downgraded version of what walks the catwalk.
Yeah, but also, I mean, what walks on the catwalk are a reflection of our globalized world, right? Okay, there's another question.
It's not really a question so much as a comment. I love textiles. I've collected a lot of things from around the world, weavings and embroideries generally. And I have a small collection of huipiles, fajas. I have some bird pants from Panajachel. I'm not even sure what's in my box, but right now it's just folded up in a box in my attic. And I'm sure that a couple of them really should belong in a museum. The years I lived in Guatemala were very rough ones politically, and Chichicastenango was off limits, but I snuck up there, and I have a huipil from Chichicastenango. I don't know what to do with these things, though. You have quite a collection there. Here, it seems most museums have all the huipiles, et cetera, that they need. So if you have any ideas what I should do with my little personal collection, that would be wonderful.
Call the curator of textiles. Call the curator of textiles. Mm-hmm. And have them look at it and go through it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.